I actually feel like this movie almost speaks more so to people who have left the church. I think it is an invitation to relinquish some bitterness looking backward.
Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Mystery is a 2025 film written and directed by Rian Johnson. In this third installment of the Knives Out series, Johnson takes us to a parish in my neck of the woods, a small town in upstate New York, where an impossible murder has taken place.
One thing I want to make sure we say at the top, we will absolutely spoil the whodunit and just about every other project we talk about related to it. We chose this movie specifically because of its relation to the movie we talked about last week, Murder on the Orient Express. Rian Johnson has chosen to develop his own franchise inspired by the Agatha Christie model. It is largely credited, unfairly, maybe fairly so, with having revived the cozy mystery genre in cinema. So we talked about Agatha Christie and the cozy mystery. Does this qualify? Is Rian Johnson doing a faithful Agatha Christie homage, or is he playing with the genre a bit here?
I do think he plays with the genre in each of the films that he's made in this series, but you can tell he just loves Poirot. He loves Agatha Christie's style of slowly revealing information. He clearly had a list of movies that take place in murders that take place in locked rooms. And so clearly he is a lover of this genre and has done his homework.
Do you feel like the whodunit is back? Did it ever go away? Did it?
No.
Okay. I kept reading articles about, this has really revived the genre, and there's been a new proliferation of TV series and movies that are born out of this Knives Out project.
I mean, if you've ever seen a procedural on CBS, that's a whodunit.
Maybe something's coming back from the Agatha Christie days, and I think the whodunit is now serving as a digestible way to tackle social issues. And I liked this quote from Charlotte Vassell I was reading. She's the author of The Other Half, another cozy mystery, and she basically talks about murders as a very clear violation of the social contract. And Agatha Christie used to use that as a way to build a very coherent and tight-knit social world and then break it apart and deal more in themes around greed and lust and some of the more personal vices. Whereas it seems like Rian Johnson is trying to get at some sociological stuff. I mean, this movie is going after faith, and he's gone after class and race in his prior movies. So he's using a very digestible format to go after some really knotty and knotty social issues. Is that a fair take?
I think so. And I wouldn't say he's remotely subtle in it.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I'm not appreciative of his way of being very overt when he's painting. He is creating, especially in this film, each person is a different stereotype come to life. And honestly, I kind of appreciated that tactic. We don't need the subtlety in an ensemble cast. Like, we have too much to do and we have too many people to follow that I think it worked to be like, oh, you are spreading disinformation on YouTube. Got it. I know who you are. Let's move on. You are a pious person who thinks that you've done nothing wrong and sacrificed your whole life, but you are actually incredibly bitter and hardened. Okay, I got it. Let's move on. So I don't think we needed subtlety, and I don't think we got subtlety.
Was there any particular shot or visual sequence that stood out to you that told the story particularly well?
I'm obsessed with Rian Johnson's use of light in this film. I mean, again, with the not being subtle, it was like enough that I think any average film goer could actually spot it. The imagery of opening the door, having the light shine behind you, and all we're doing is looking at the shadow of the cross that used to be on the wall, overlaying the shadow of the cross on the wall. You see the bigness of the man compared to religion. There were probably, 3-4 times that shot was done in the exact same way. But like, that is such a beautiful storytelling element. Also, use of light. The conversation where Benoit Blanc and Judd meet each other for the first time. And Benoit Blanc comes hard with his opinion of faith and everything he thinks it's wrong with the church, organized religion, etc. And you have Father Judd listening patiently, and his response is just this beautiful, understanding, gentle reflection on what Benoit Blanc has said. And as he's speaking, you see the light from outside kind of rise over his head. I just was overtaken with light in this film.
It's fascinating how imposing the gray was in the portion where Blanc is bringing this particularly dour, judgmental energy into the conversation. And then the amount of relief. I didn't realize that I was storing tension during that conversation. And then as the light comes in through the windows, just suddenly I breathe a sigh of relief that I didn't realize I needed them to create for me. So, no, just dittoing that.
Well, and I mean, Benoit Blanc gets his own moment with the light shining on him when he's about to reveal who done it. The light from the outside intervenes, and he stops himself and says, this I've invested, and he sits down on the altar, and like the light from the outside coming through the windows has intervened and stopped him from solving the mystery right then and there. I don't know if the movie was making some declarative statement. I don't think it was. Okay, so this is not light. This is a camera having a personality of its own. Samson, the gardener, played by Thomas Hayden Church, he is constantly introduced far away, and then a camera will zoom in on him. So we are like at the church, and he's in his home that's a bit further away, and we pan in on him from afar. And this happens at least twice with him sitting in his house, and the camera has, for some reason, it seems like we're back here watching how far away Samson is from the church, actually. And then we come in and we meet him where he is. And I just loved that the camera decided that was how we were going to learn about Samson, the character.
I felt that, but did not notice that. There's passive processing for me.
Right.
That's really,
and
I appreciate
think that's
that.
the beauty of it, is like you didn't clock it, which is why that's how it's doing its job.
Yeah. How did Rian Johnson do using the cozy mystery format to talk about faith?
I have been pondering this. I would say for me, it's interesting that he has declared that he grew up in the church. He was a church kid all his life, and he has since kind of walked away from it in his adulthood. But I see evidence of him wrestling with what Christianity is and how it's being weaponized and how people respond to faith in the public square. I think Rian Johnson did his best to make Father Judd the picture of what a Christian could be and have that interact with each possible version of a Christian, quote unquote, that you may run across. I found it to be a very hopeful conversation. I found it to be a very humbling conversation. There are like 2 or 3 moments that Father Judd, to me, brought me to tears, and you're going to hear it in my voice. But he just was like such a powerful representation of Christianity to me. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, were any of those related to Bridget Everett?
Yes.
Yes. Good.
I mean, before while I get myself cleaned up here, what did you think of that scene with Bridget Everett?
I mean, self-indulgent, but I cannot tell you what happens to my physiological being whenever Bridget Everett is on screen, on stage. It could be that my entire motivation for doing a podcast is to have an excuse to someday talk to Bridget Everett. So So
we'll work on that for you, dear.
I have to give it to Rian Johnson for casting so well for Bridget Everett's role. She works with a family construction company that gets called in to do some work associated with the victim, and she is this irritating but lovable Joe, and is friendly but semi-unhelpful. It puts Father Judd into this particularly irritable headspace. She's not giving him what he needs. She is bypassing something that is very urgent for him. And suddenly a window cracks open and she says, Father Judd, could you pray for me? And goes into some really painful elements in her personal life. I think her mom is sick. They've been arguing. This is such a strange reference to come into, but I just watched the Noah Kahn documentary. He makes this really devastating observation. We may never have the conversation we want to or need to have with our parents. The connection we want to have, sometimes we're not always going to get it. And that's just such a painful thing to sit with, knowing that our time on this earth with our loved ones is so short. And so I don't know how Bridget Everett, in her few lines, brings the full force of that emotion in with a weaponized vulnerability that comes through in her show Somebody Somewhere, that also deals with a gentler, maybe less preachy in some ways. Like their vision of what church is supposed to be is a little less prescriptive than what Rian Johnson is going for here. But I have to imagine he's seen her work in that, and I would guess that played a role in the casting. Okay, I'm actually surprised at how short that was for my Bridget Everett rant. I'll still fawn over her some more because I saw her
As
show.
you should.
So, yes. But yes, please. What hit you? How did that fire an arrow into your heart?
I had to go back and watch it a second time because I felt this overwhelming anxiety in that call scene. And I was like, is there music underneath that's causing this tension? What's going on? And there's not a drop of music. It is the camera work, and it is Benoit basically being like, wrap it up. Why are you not getting what you need? And it's Father Judd getting so spun up in this conversation, and it creates this annoyance. She's just chattering. And he is in this headspace that he's been kind of led to throughout the day following Benoit Blanc. And minutes before this phone call, there was this statue of Jesus that could potentially be holding a clue. And when Benoit was about to smash it, he looks at Father Judd for approval. Father Judd's like, yeah, of course. And he didn't say those words, but there was a affirmative, yes, go ahead and break it. And Benoit Blanc smashes the Jesus. There's nothing in it. And when he's on this phone call, he's in this headspace of, I just need information. I just need to get to the answer. And the look on his face when she breaks the silence asking him to pray for her, it's like the veil has fallen from his eyes. He remembers his purpose in life. He remembers his vocation. He glances down at the Jesus, and he literally has this moment of what have I been doing? My calling is to help people. And this woman clearly is chattering for a reason. And when she gets to the heart of the matter of sharing this very vulnerable story with him, he closes the door on Blanc and goes in the other room. He realizes he's talking to a person who needs help, and he just goes and prays with her. And it just broke me.
Yeah.
It was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
So, and you have the sound mixing as well. Her voice on the phone, the first few minutes of the conversation, it sounds tinny, like you're listening to a phone call through a tin can.
Yeah.
And the minute she asks him to pray, there's this clarity, we hear her dialogue as if it's in our ears. And it just becomes this, he is now paying attention. He's now listening. There's no music telling us how to feel. I mean, Bridget is on screen for 30 seconds total. I mean, almost all of it is off-screen voice acting. And she got me to that place through that, as you said, weaponized vulnerability. I think that is the turning point of the film. It is the best scene in the film, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I had to watch it twice.
I was saying to you earlier that I felt like Letterboxd was up Ryan Johnson's ass for the praise on this movie. I'm gonna be up both of their asses for a second because I think Ryan Johnson does a few things well. You've already named it. I think lets stillness move the audience. Silence is effective when used appropriately. It allows your brain to fill in the gaps. It is the thing that forces some self-reflection, melts all of the distractions away. And then Bridget Everett, a quick note on her background, not traditionally a screen actor. She is a stage performer. She started in I think it's a semi-professional karaoke. I don't even know what that is exactly, but that was just where she was. That's just where she was living her truth in New York. Starts turning that into some original work. Starts performing a cabaret, Bridget Everett and the Tender Moments. Body, she is rude. She is sexual. She is. So her bit on stage is so I went to see her in her Big Titties, Big Dreams tour in Washington, D.C. at the Warner Theater. She just brings a raw energy to the equation that leaves a lot of room for vulnerability. And you can tap into the really painful stuff too when you let yourself be free. And she does that. She is just incredibly generous with everything from her own her body to her feelings. And it's a gift. It is genuinely a gift. I know that sounds like an odd thing to say in this setting, in this conversation about fate. But I do. I mean, David danced naked around the campfire.
Well, isn't the vulnerability that we show one another? Actually, that's where we're going with this conversation around Father Judd.
Yeah.
Is like in the first time he met with the Bible study group, the hardened followers of Monsignor Wicks, and he bears his soul to them immediately and says, I was a boxer and I killed someone in the ring and I had to look at my life and to admit that you have committed accidental murder, but you are the responsible for someone losing their life, and you were sharing this with people you don't know that well. Like, that is a vulnerability that is weaponized against him later in the film, but he went for it anyway, right? He shares this information because he is trying to walk the walk. Being vulnerable with one another is how we grow in our faith.
Do you think this movie was trying to change any hearts and minds? Maybe was it trying to get at something else? What were we going for?
Well, I think this is getting to the heart of our "who was this for" conversation.
Yeah,
and
we may get to that a little early, but
it's okay. I think this is what's the most difficult thing for me to wrap my head around with Ryan Johnson's film is I do think it is reaching out to a certain demographic. And
can you name what that demographic is? Let's be if you're comfortable doing that.
I mean, of course.
Name names, Elise.
I think that Ryan Johnson has seen the move toward Christian nationalism in this country, in the United States, particularly. The way I interpret this, he is calling out people who come to the church because of what they're going to get out of it. They come to the church because they feel powerful. They come to the church because they want to feel like they're better than other people. All of these stereotypes of people that Ryan Johnson has put in this church, in these pews, represent a different faction of American who's basically using their faith to bludgeon other people. Yeah. And I think that he's calling them out and he's trying to show them when juxtaposed against this gentleman who, does have a temper, right? He's not perfect. Father Judd, puts his dukes up multiple times, but it is a conversation about how we're all walking in a direction. And if we are walking toward humility and gentleness and grace, what that could look like versus the hardened souls that sit in those pews every Sunday. So I think he's trying to talk to people who are entrenched. The problem being the type of people who will go see this movie are probably not those. Yeah. He's probably speaking to the people who already agree with him. Though I will say, many who may go see this film may not view any Christians as gentle, as kind, as good. And so I think there is an element of Father Judd is actually a surprise to the people who do go see this film.
I actually feel like this movie almost speaks more so to people who have left the church. I think it is an invitation to relinquish some bitterness looking backward. There's a catharsis, I think, for the person who has perhaps felt like they needed to leave these communities and now do so with some level of retrospective judgment or bitterness. And this felt to me like an invitation to dissolve some bitterness, because this didn't feel like a particularly effective portrayal of faith communities to me. I watched it with my family, and we were evangelical growing up, and I turned to them afterwards and was like, "Oh, did you guys feel seen by that?" And they were like, "I mean, it was a good movie, but no." I don't know that it was trying that hard to speak directly to somebody from the faith tradition. I think if they were, the Catholic Church isn't where they would have started. I feel like they would have.
Why did he choose the Catholic Church?
I think the visuals. I think it looks better.
I mean, there is a tradition of Father Ted.
That's the priest detective, right?
Yes. There is a tradition of having Catholic priests involved in murder mysteries.
Yeah.
One of my favorite shows for a time there was Grantchester, which is, he's an Anglican priest, but same neighborhood, right? Like a high church celibate priest is walking along with his detective buddy who's an agnostic at best, and they're solving crimes and talking about what it's like to be a human on this earth. I have to say this, and I'm devastated to say this.
It's fine, I'll edit it out. I'll silence you. Don't worry.
Please do. This is the only time I think I have not believed Andrew Scott.
Yeah.
That man can act his way into anything. I have believed this for a very long time. I do not believe he is a doomsday nutter butter.
Yeah.
I just can't.
Yeah, I will say, I think the ensemble was wasted in this movie. Part of the reason I only gave it a 3.5 stars, despite really respecting a lot of the work being done here, was this was such an incredible cast. And Kerry Washington is just crushing it in this movie. And I forget she's in it when I think back on the movie, having seen it a few months ago. I think obviously Daniel Craig gets more and more screen time for each of these movies for a good reason. I think that we stuck with Josh O'Connor particularly effectively in this, but at that point, I think you got to dial down the ensemble a little bit. I think we just have to make it a little tighter so that we don't have to work every single one of them into the plot. I think we're losing some depth and some fun when we spread these ensembles too thin. And then on top of that,
Andrew Scott tried to sell the line, "We're going to see idiot versions of ourselves on Netflix." He tried to sell it, but was to me ooh, that's a little too much.
Right.
I will say Glenn Close knocked it out of the park. And
she did.
That confession scene at the end, and this is the spoilers, right? We have somebody who is a devout churchgoer named Martha, which is not an accident. Martha, in the story in the Bible, Mary and Martha. Martha's the sister that won't sit down and listen to Jesus. She's toiling away in the back. And we are told in this movie that Martha is the one who makes the entire church run. She at one point exclaims, "You're defiling my files," which made me laugh heartily out loud. Glenn Close is a treasure, and she gets her due at the end, I think. That confession scene, and then her lying in Josh O'Connor's arms as she's in her last breaths, and she's just got her eyes fixed on him, and he brings her to that point of confessing over things that she's done wrong, and he reminds her of how she has harbored hatred in her heart for this woman Grace for 60 years. And that moment of release in Glenn Close's face when she forgives Grace, That's the second time I cried. I
Yeah,
lost it.
that is even as somebody who has, I wouldn't say I've fully left the Christian faith. It is still my tribe of origin, and I just harbor so much respect towards something that I still don't fully identify with anymore. I think one of the beautiful things that really does link to how I feel Christianity is unique among faiths is this basically call to relinquish power, right? To relinquish power over another person. Compassion is a really hard thing to hold. And even in dying, part of the way that Father Judd comforts Martha is by holding her accountable. Like in a moment where you might want to just anesthetize the situation and let her slip away unbothered, instead uses that as a moment to hold this person accountable for their sins. And that's just a really hard thing to hold that I deeply respect about this movie. Even if the way that the community was portrayed didn't really land for me, I do think that it understands parts of the heart of Christianity in a way that I thought was particularly beautiful.
And I don't know if I would agree with you that it was holding her accountable necessarily. My interpretation was more, she was holding this so deeply in her, this hatred, and that in order for her to ask for forgiveness, she needed to relinquish it. And so it was more, maybe it's holding her accountable. I'm not entirely sure. I had never thought about it in those terms necessarily, but it's this like, the kind thing for him to do was not to just let her linger in like her hatred.
I do think accountability it's a double-edged sword in that you can talk about it like punishment, or you can talk about it like understanding that you have to reconcile to a hard truth in order to live peacefully, honestly, that kind of thing. And so I think it is more so about reconciling to a hard truth, not for any punitive purpose, but just you have to know how to hold something difficult in order to live an honest life, I would argue. It is, in fact, a deeply compassionate thing and
It's funny that I responded to that word. Okay.
No, I mean, listen, my whole thing around like my initial introduction to this concept of accountability is like in early teenage conversations around when Christians start to talk about sexuality. And so people start getting accountability partners and that kind of thing. So yeah, I have my own problematic association with what accountability means. And when I say problematic, it's just not broad enough. It doesn't reach enough aspects of grace to fully count, to my mind.
I do think it's on that point of forgiving the harlot whore. In my notes, I literally, because they don't use her name for the first half of the movie, my notes I'm saying like, oh, I'm very upset watching the harlot whore wreck the church. And later in my notes, I mention, oh, her name is Grace for a reason. And her father and son denied her that. So that's kind of me processing even my own reaction. The movie wants me to feel a certain way about Grace, this character that we never meet because she's dead by the time Father Judd gets there. But we meet her through other people. Yeah. And she is painted as this person who was out to destroy the church and needed to be extricated. And we slowly learn her name, her history, partly why she got where she was. And then we learn that the church changes its name after Monsignor Wicks goes away. Instead of being Our Lady of Perpetual Fortitude, it becomes Our Lady of Perpetual Grace. And I know it's like very ham-fisted, but I loved it.
I love how ham-fisted this movie is.
It's
and
beautiful. I said at one point, like, it's very telegraphed, but I wasn't mad at it.
I actually think maybe I'm wrong about this. Rian Johnson is very good at basically, I feel like the killer in each of these movies is exactly who you would expect it to be. You start with the most obvious person, and then he kind of misdirects, and then you come back to like, oh, yeah, no, that's right. Of course, it was the obvious person. I'm
only bringing this up because it brings me immense joy, and I don't know where it fits into the conversation otherwise.
Please give me a non sequitur. Hit me with it.
Benoit Blanc was listening to Cats in his car and plays Phantom of the Opera in the church, and that man is an Andrew Lloyd Webber stan, and I am here for that.
Oh, so he is gay. That is that.
Straight men can like Andrew Lloyd Webber, Tanner.
Allegedly, name one. Yeah, that's
So
fair.
that's my non sequitur.
Okay, so Benoit Blanc, clearly now a staple in the cozy mystery canon. Do you think he's ready to be considered among the greats?
I mean, he is delightful, and I enjoy watching him. But I think you're kind of getting at the longevity issue. We are only 3 stories in, and I mean, if this is all we get of him, this is a pretty good run. I don't know if he reaches Sherlock Holmes level. In 100 years, I'm not sure he's going to be said in the same breath as Hercule Poirot and Sherlock Holmes, but I enjoy him equally as much.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think his fun distinguishing factor, and part of what makes this movie very fun, is he is such a fascinating purveyor of empathy. So if Sherlock Holmes is forensics and Hercule Poirot is more motivation, I think Blanc, we don't really get into his process around inference and deductive reasoning. A lot of what makes his mysteries so fun is we watch him empathize and sift through the human connections in a way that is very effective because it draws out the flamboyance of each character and also leads us to the human quirks that drive some of these broad issues that Rian Johnson likes to take on.
He has like a Columbo-esque disarming way of approaching everyone he's questioning, whereas Hercule Poirot has like this, like he's kind of quiet and off, like quirky and like removed back here and just kind of listening to you. Whereas I think like Columbo and Benoit Blanc kind of lean in. They want to like disarm you in that way. He was doing to Father Judd until Father Judd put a stop to it. I love that like yin and yang of the two of them.
Yeah. And then, maybe I shouldn't have ended with this question because it's this one's on the heavier side.
Well, that's okay.
But why do you think that in today's day and age, we are so hot for Priest? Why?
Oh my gosh, you were getting at my Letterboxd review, like not mine, the one that I picked for today. Oh my God. You said this was... No.
I was trying not to be too deadpan going into it, but...
I was like, oh my God, what are we going to talk about?
Right.
Why are we hot for Priest, Tanner?
Yeah. We got 2 of them in this movie. We got Fleabag, we got Andrew Scott, we got Josh O'Connor. What are we doing? What do we need as a society that right now we are hot for Priest?
I think there is a gentleness and a vulnerability that we're looking for. There's the vulnerability, there's the strength, the certainty of knowledge of something that we're all looking for, certainty. There is a comfort in somebody who is willing to listen and who comes at every situation thinking about how to help other people. There is any number of things that we associate with priests that I think we're looking for in a world where everybody's immediate reaction is to like put up their dukes or to be aggressive or be defensive. Or I mean, like they literally say in this film that we're fighting an existential war and everything is kind of built in this way of we're getting ready for battle. And so to have a priest character who is just disarming, not arming, but disarming and gentle and comes at you, not telling you that you're wrong, but they clearly have a point of view. That it's this beautiful way to converse. And being a priest, they're sitting on something that they believe to be certain that the other person's not going to move them from.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm not that far from where you are. I think it's just the collar. That's the... No.
Shut up, Tanner.
No. No. I will flesh that out in a less shallow way. So actually, Rian Johnson, in doing research for this movie, connected with like 5 priests in Denver, and they talked about how he wanted to dig into day in the life basically for them, and they noted that it's hard to go anywhere when you're in your collar without somebody stopping you and sobbing about something they're going through in their lives, and it's that experience that inspired writing Bridget Everett's character in this. And I do think that, I don't know, you watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, right?
With you.
That's right. That's right. The point of that movie is kind of about losing your faith in God, which doesn't seem like that, but it's basically when you realize that like there may be no meaning in any of this, and on top of that, the world is changing so quickly that you can't even tell what's true and what's real anymore. You just start to feel very cynical, alienated, lonely. Like, I don't know that there are many institutions that have anything that feels like a shepherd anymore. I think there is something to taking ownership over the well-being of a group of people who are no doubt hurting and need support. I do think that like the priest get up as an automatic signal of like, I may be someone you can bring this to, right? And there aren't a lot of formal spaces in public life anymore to bring that. You can bring it to your friends, but they aren't people who
therapists you can't identify on the corner of the street, right? Like a priest, it's a very deliberate symbol of who you are. There's this element, just to conclude my thought, like that came to mind while you were talking. There's a moment in Fleabag that wrecks me, and there's a moment in this show or this movie that kind of wrecked me. And I already described the Bridget Everett phone call and that moment of Father Judd realizing that he let himself get pushed beyond what he would have preferred and kind of walking back from that. And I would say that moment, it's the same moment in Fleabag where Andrew Scott, the hot priest, goes to Fleabag's house and he asks her in this almost pleading, like, please don't let me do this. Like, we're going to have sex, aren't we? And she says yes. And he goes beyond what he would have thought. And she even says in the morning, I can't believe you did that. Like, when we push and push and push against people who we think are stable and but stable and certain in where they are, and we get them to move, we're actually kind of disappointed in the fact that they moved. And that you have this moment in this movie of like, Father Judd is disappointed in himself for letting himself get pushed beyond, almost like to the point of now he's going to confess to a murder he didn't do because he's just so overwrought with like, I didn't live up to my own standards. So I just love this character that we've started to process, this priest that is disarming and charming and one of us, but we know that there's a line that we won't cross.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
It's so good.
Damn, do I have to rewatch Fleabag?
You do.
Okay, shall we letterbox?
I was going to say, that's the context for my letterboxed review.
Yeah, and then I think you have to segue. I think you have to dive right into yours.
My letterboxed review is from JOJ66. Adding Josh O'Connor and his slutty neck tattoo in the Hot Priest Cinematic Universe Hall of Fame.
Yes. A cinematic universe that is just now finding its feet. More, please.
Same.
Yeah, hell yeah. Mine is also pretty brief. Comes from Joe Reed. Oh, did you say your star rating on that one? What was his star rating?
That was their star rating was 3.5 stars.
So that tattoo only got him so far. Good. Okay. So this one comes from Joe Reed. It says, get me drunk and ask me why this movie is Glenn Close's apology for Hillbilly Elegy.
Oh my God.
I don't know if I need to comment on that one.
No, that one speaks for itself.
It does. Thank you, Glenn Close, for making it right. Final question. What are you looking forward to watching next?
Well, X season 5 is dropping, so I think that's where I'm going next.
Nice.
How about you?
So David Lowery directed one of my favorite movies, The Green Knight. He has a new one out called Mother Mary, starring Anne Hathaway. That eye roll. Anyway, all I know is that it is vaguely based on the life of a pop star, which is such a turn from The Green Knight. So I'm so fascinated to see what he's up to. I haven't loved all his work, so I could hate this.
Excellent.
And then next week, we've decided on our project. I think we'll follow the actor this time around.
I enjoyed this bunny trail on the cozy murder mystery.